Hi there. Welcome back to a little bit of my day. I'm Catherine, if you're new here. I live in Canada and I make journals out of old books. And I haven't been here for a while working on any. And so I'm hoping to work on a strange story today. It's time to get a strange story finished. Isn't that just a fabulous title for a journal? A strange story. I know for me, if I were to write down, if I were to attempt to write my life story in a journal for posterity's sake, it would definitely be a strange story. And I love this. I certainly hope the new owner, whoever they may be, likes that too. But of course, it always is up to the new owner what they put in. That's removable. But I simply used one of the headings from the top of the pages in A Strange Story. It's on every single page. So I'll have to be sure and include several extra pages into the to when I send it off to its new home. Now I've got the signatures here. Oh, they scared me. The threads scared me. I thought I still had threads. Sometimes there's threads still hanging out when you put folios in from the original text block. I need to find my template for my, there it is. Thank goodness I write on it, because sometimes they don't get put back into the basket. I always have a basket going for the books when I have several books on the go. But sometimes things fall out or get misplaced, and then I think, uh-oh, what book was this for? And I have to start measuring them till I go, oh, it's you. So then I learned to write on it what book it's for. And as ever, you always designate the top of your template so that it marries up when you punch your holes. And that part's easy if you do them together. I learned that one from Nancy. Do it together when you're drawing your lines, and then cut it afterwards. And then they'll always marry up. You smart girl, Nancy. So I just like to check them and make sure I'm happy with what's in here. I have the two, I think this was the original owner, and then somehow Ruth got it because her dates were after this date, and I'll never know who any of these three people are. I guess maybe if I looked further into Ruth's tree, I might discover that she had an aunt and uncle, Will and Edith, or maybe her parents were Will and Edith. Who knows? We'll never know. I'll leave that up to the new owner. If they have a membership at Ancestry, they can hunt it down. 1892. And this is where I'll just go through, and I guess it would help if I get my box. This is my bookbinding tin. So it's not my regular sewing tin. This one is just for sewing signatures. And these are what I like to hold my folios in place, because I like different sized pages. I always have to check and make sure they're where I want them to be. And then I just, one on one side, one on the other. Now be very careful. I'll tell you why I like these if you're new here. Some people like the clamps. They're sort of like a triangle shape. And they certainly hold very well. I can see why. I like these because they're flat. But you do have to be careful when you're removing them, because if you try to just yank them straight off this way, that can dig into your paper and rip it. So you usually have to slide it sideways and slide it off like that. So I learned that the hard way. So I'm just passing along a little lesson so that you don't have to learn it the hard way. Although when you learn things the hard way, you really learn them. I folded this cockeyed on purpose. That was out of the back of the book. This is the interior of A Strange Story is definitely an all sorts book, and I made use of, boy, I have to really have to go back into my memory here, because I honestly haven't picked up this sweet little book in well over a week to work on it. But what I did was I cleaned out my box of folios that I had pulled out of other books, because sometimes I'm over excited and think I can fit more pages in than I actually can, and I have to start removing them before I sew. And that's going to get glued together. So if you're wondering that this looks really weird, it was in a book like this, and I thought, I love that. So it actually, I sewed around it so that it looks kind of cool, and it will go in like this. I simply reinforced it with contractor's tape, and it will go in like this, and then after I sew it into the text block, it will I will glue it together, and it will be a cool little center pocket. There we go. Again, I did that on purpose. I don't want you thinking, she's leaving that in and it's crooked. It's crooked for a reason. I like it crooked. I haven't used a guest book in ages. So a guest book is going in, and I obviously had this one ready for a reason, for some other tiny book, and so it's going into A Strange Story. A Strange Story is going to have strange guts. I want that up a bit. I like a layered look so that you can see upcoming pages from underneath. Didn't that tea dye cool? And I don't know why it did that. So do you think I can replicate it? I haven't so far. It was just one of those happy accidents, as Bob Ross would say. And I hope it accidentally happens again someday. That was someone else did that. There we go. I love the interior of this book. And I didn't feel like lace on any of the ends. I may change my mind when it's time. There we go. When it's time to put a little bit of ephemera in it. I think I intended for this to be a scantily clad journal. But you know I can never leave well enough alone. So sometimes I change my mind, and in that case, that's when you get out your trusty glue. You can glue in lace if you don't have a sewing machine, or else maybe you've got a really expensive sewing machine and you don't want to be sewing paper. I fully get that. My old machine was my mom's, and it would otherwise never get used, and it would probably maybe sell at a thrift store for $20, but it was my mom's, and I don't think she'd mind one little bit that I use it for making these books. She used to love these books. When I'd bring them over and say, "Want to see my latest book I made?" And she could just turn the pages and it would keep her mesmerized, because her mind would go down memory lane with them. And sometimes I could get some really good stories out of her. I wish I had recorded them. I always marry up the top with the top, and sometimes the bottom isn't always even. I don't worry about it, because to me the top is much more important, that it's all even Steven. And the bottom, you know what? Probably going to put a little bit of ruffly lace maybe at the top, or some raggedy lace. I like the raggedy lace too. So I don't worry about the bottom as much. Now, oh, come on, you. Everyone's got a different way. Some people use a book. Some people have a punch board. This is the way I like to do it. And then the second hole from the top, I always stick a corsage pin through it. I find that hole, depending on what I've got going on in the book, will always hit all of the folios. So there isn't one that will come falling out before I have a chance to sew it. And on average, unless it's a particularly tiny book, I usually do a 6-hole running stitch when I sew a signature together. So whatever works for you. Some people successfully do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, even with a hidden hollow back spine, because that's what this one will have. Or 5-hole pamphlet stitch. Those are good, sturdy ways to sew a signature. I just like the ease and the look of a 6-hole running stitch. So that just, in case they get bumped and these don't hold securely, I won't lose where my holes are lined up by having a pin in one of the holes. Because I've had that happen. And it's really, really frustrating to try and marry up all those holes again to do your sewing. So see what I mean here? This is quite a bit smaller, but by putting my corsage pin in here, I'm going to be able to securely hold it in place, and it won't accidentally slide out if it tried to. If you're wondering what's behind it, it's just a gardener's kneeling pad from the dollar store. The nice thing about the corsage pin also is that if something calls me away from my desk and I haven't finished punching the holes in, it holds securely where I left off. And I can just simply keep poking my holes when I return. Especially when you've got a little dog that's still, when she needs to go, she needs to go. I mean, sometimes I do too. So it's a handy thing. That's just something I do. I put my finger down on the other side just to get a good pinch. Oh, I should have put my pin in. It's just Daddy. My husband is just in heaven this weekend. This is like Christmas to him this weekend. This weekend has been, by the time you watch this, it'll be has been, because it's Monday, the World Pipe and Drum Championships in Glasgow, Scotland. So on Friday and on Saturday, my husband has been up since 4:45 in the morning to watch online the competitions. It's heaven for him. He's so happy. And he and his brother were drummers for many years with several pipe and drum bands here in Ontario. The one probably that most people recognize are the 48th Highlanders of Canada. And also he drummed with the Peel Regional Police, Peel Police at the time it was called. And one year Peel Police actually qualified and went over to the Worlds, but by then my husband was married and had a little family, so he couldn't do it, but his brother did. was able to go over and I've got to clean this up. I was using it for other things and I can feel it's kind of, I guess now is not the time. I only need that tip, so now is not the time. Anyhow, his brother did get to go over once and compete over in Glasgow, and that was a dream come true. And it used to be prior to the internet, they would have to wait to hear the results of who won. And now they can literally watch it live while it's happening. And the two of them love to, I might be sharing too much. I don't, he's so modest and humble, but also private, but I'm proud of him. You know, it's quite an achievement what he achieved with his talent. But anyhow, he and his brother will, they'll get set up. He'll have it on the TV going, and he'll also have it going on his computer screen beside him so that he can see what the upcoming bands will be, so that he can get prepared. And then they will chat with each other, but they text because they don't want to wake the rest of their house up because there'd be a lot of hooting and hollering. And of course, anyone who knows bagpipes, it's quite noisy. So there we go. So it's a he's having a lot of fun down there right now because I'm pre-taping. So he'll be done soon. He loves to be able to pick who he thinks will be first, second, third sort of thing. And he's pretty good. He's almost always right. He's got a good ear, that's for sure. I've made the mistake before of tossing this in my recycle bin too soon, only to discover I needed it. I wanted to switch out a folio or something, and I needed this again. So I've learned to put it back into the basket until I'm completely done. And now what I will do is I will write the numbers of the folios into the lines so that I know which ones to sew in where. So that's ready, and I've already punched. So there we go. And I want to show you something, because sometimes I know when I first started, especially doing hidden hollow back and doing where it will show, you really want your holes straight when you've got a spine where your stitching is coming right through the spine. You do want your hole straight. When you're doing hidden hollow back, do you notice this hole? I sort of poked it a little too high than the others. That is still going to be just fine, because your thread will make an allowance for having to go up a little bit. You'll still be able to pull your thread taut when you're sewing in your signatures. And so even if that where I poked that doesn't quite marry up with the hole that it will be coming out here, the thread will go up and find it. I mean, I might have to wiggle my sewing needle a little bit to finagle it out this hole and then find that hole. But don't worry if some of your holes are, if you have one that's a little bit off like that. I used to panic at first. Oh no, do I have to make a whole new one? And I honestly did that. And then one time I thought, that doesn't make sense because the thread would accommodate that. I had to get my brain going. And it does. And it's fine. And it sews beautifully. So then I decide what color I want and which thread, because I have, this is upholstery thread, and then I have waxed thread, and I usually, my go-to is just usually good old Gutermann, a polyester or polyester cotton blend is will do fine too. It and I will use, you can get these in any, the Sewing Notions department of any store. You can get them at Walmart. And I will wax them. I will double thread and wax them. And they hold just fine. The old threads, they weren't used, so many people go, oh, I use this really thick hemp. And for me, I figured they didn't do that back in the day, and it held for 100 years. They used cotton or linen threads. I'm looking for my scissors if you're wondering. You can't see, but I'm trying to see around my phone and and find where my scissors are. So I don't worry about it. I think people worry sometimes more than they need to about, oh, is this tough enough? I don't know what you're doing with your books, but it's going to be glued on the back. Back here, once your threads are through, you'll also be reinforcing it by putting glue down. Some people reinforce it even more. Most times I do as well, by gluing down a piece of paper on top. It's going to be pretty secure. You do you, though, so please don't let me make you make changes to whatever's working for you. You do you, and this is how I do me. So I still need readers. I'm still a little blurry in one eye. The eye surgeon who did my surgery is going to actually, I'll probably be there right now while you're watching this. Oh yeah, that's right. I have to go out. Now that I think about it, here I was thinking I'm not going anywhere. And I do have one place to go, but I'm happy to go because I'll be relieved to have him take a look at it because it's still a little bit blurry, and he's quite sure he can get that sorted out for me. And get my eyes sorted out so that I can get my final prescription, which will just be readers, but I want bifocal readers so that I don't have to be taking glasses on and off and on and off and on and off. I've been having to do that now all summer, and it's driving me out of my mind. I don't know how my husband does it. Well, that's why he spends half of his day going, have you seen where I left my glasses? I want them on my face in the morning, and they will come off my face when I go to bed. Everyone's different. I always start with the last signature, and I move from back to forward when I'm sewing in. So I will be doing that, but I'm at 29 minutes. And as ever, I don't sew on camera because I get too kerfuffled. There's a lot of things I'll do on camera that cause me anxiety, but it's fun knowing you're there rooting me on. This I am not ready to do on camera. So I'm going to say goodbye now and thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed today's little chat while I poked holes, I hope you'll hit like and maybe even say hi down below. I'll say hi back. And if you're new, I hope you'll hit subscribe. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.